Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, April 5th City Commission meeting. I'd like to convene the meeting and ask Mr. Wiley to do the roll call.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell is absent today.
He is excused.
Yes. And Mayor Commissioner Rocky Smith.
I'm here.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Present.
Thanks.
So we have like echo tonight, or where volume is higher?
Yeah, I'm working on that.
Okay, all right. Would you all please stand and join me in saluting the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, tonight we have on the agenda, we have 4 proclamations, and I'm going to ask a couple of my commissioners here to help with that. So, Commissioner Mitchell, do you have one of them in front of you? So if you would start off the Arbor Month.
Okay. Arbor Month Proclamation. Whereas trees reduce erosion, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas Oregon City is celebrating its 11th year as a Tree City USA. And whereas maintaining and increasing the urban forest in Oregon City will help the city withstand the effects of climate change and natural disasters. And whereas the city and our Arbor Day partners, the Oregon Department of Forestry, Friends of Trees, and Oregon Community Trees, work together throughout the year to plant trees and educate the community about the importance of urban forestry.
Now, therefore, I, Denise C. McGriff, Mayor of the City of Oregon City, do proclaim April 2023 Arbor Month in Oregon City and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Month, support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, and to plant and care for trees, promote the well-being of this and future generations. In witness thereof, I will set my hand this 5th day of April 2023. And I'd like to just give another shout out to our Parks and Recreations Department, Jonathan Waverly, and to Pete Walter, who helped shepherd the tree planting we had on Saturday, and also for making the weather better because we didn't get hailed on or thundered and lightning on because we finished in the morning. And I was really very happy to see all the citizens who came out to help with that effort. And I got to plant some trees myself, so that was a lot of fun. All right. Mr. Morrow, would you like to take the next one?
Sure. Okay. Whereas in 2007, Hideko Tamura Snyder, a survivor of the bombing of Hiroshima, founded the One Sunny Day Initiative to educate the public about the consequences of the use of nuclear weapons. And whereas the One Sunny Day Initiative, through educational presentations and cultural exchange programs, plants seed of peace, hope, and reconciliation for all people. And whereas in 2017, the One Sunny Day Initiative partnered with Green Legacy Hiroshima to germinate seeds from the ginkgo trees that survived the atomic blast for the purpose of planting on public lands as a living connection to events that brought an end to a historic war and the resilience and persistence of life. And whereas the City of Oregon City was chosen to host one of the Hiroshima Peace Trees, and whereas the City of Oregon City, Oregon Community Trees, and the Oregon Department of Forestry have partnered to honor and memorialize the planting of the Hiroshima Peace Tree.
Now, therefore, I, Denise McGriff, Mayor of the City of Oregon City, do proclaim April 29th, 2023 as One Sunny Day of Peace, and ask all residents to become familiar with the history of the atomic bombing that brought an end to World War II, to recognize the work of its survivors who have dedicated their lives to remembrance and peace, and to please welcome our connection to this event. A ginkgo biloba sapling grown from that tree that survived the atomic blast will be planted at the end of the Oregon Trail Center on the 29th, and this is witnessed herein by my hand this 5th day of April 2023. So hopefully you can all come out to that. It'll be at the end of the Oregon Trail Center, and we will be planting a tree. The next one is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, 2023. Whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month calls attention to the fact that sexual violence is widespread and impacts every person in the community, SAAM aims to raise public awareness about sexual violence and educate communities about how to prevent it. And whereas the system of oppression such as racism, sexism, classism, heterosexism, ageism, ableism, etc., contribute to higher rates of sexual harassment, assault, and abuse. Unfortunately, those same groups are also most impacted by an inequitable system of oppression in our society. And whereas we recognize that it will take ending all forms of oppression to end sexual violence worldwide, making a connection between the various forms of oppression and the underlying causes of sexual assault is critical to making a holistic and lasting change. However, we cannot do this without recognizing historical injustice and realizing how privilege and complacency reinforce oppression. And whereas we can trace a line from sexual violence to systems of oppression, the theme of this year's Sexual Assault Awareness Month campaign is Drawing Connections, Prevention Demands Equity. The campaign calls on all individuals, communities, organizations, and institutions to change the systems surrounding us to build equity and respect within the community, workplace, and future of our youth. And whereas SAAM calls attention to the misconceptions and misinformation about sexual assault, it is important that we rededicate ourselves to creating a society where sexual assault is not tolerated, survivors are supported, and all persons in our community can live without fear. And whereas with proper education, we can successfully reduce the alarming physical and psychologically damaging crime and help survivors heal. Now, therefore, I, Denise C. McGriff, here proclaim April 2023 Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and that the Commission encourages all citizens to show support for survivors by wearing teal every Tuesday in April to demonstrate that there is no place for assault. I will set my hand on this day, the 5th of April, 2023. And I'd like to call forward members of come on up and tell everybody which groups you're from. Thank you. Just say your name for the record.
Erin Henkelman. Lex Crawford. Thank you, Mayor
So
McGriff.
make sure that the mic is in front of you. So there you go. And then you can
Thank
switch
you.
it over to her.
Thank you, Mayor McGriff and members of the Commission for inviting us to speak this evening. My name is Erin Henkelman, and I am the Director for a Safe Place Family Justice Center and an employee of Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. To my right is Lex Crawford, Training and Outreach Coordinator for Clackamas Women's Services. Sexual Assault Awareness Month, or SAM, was first nationally observed in 2001, but advocates and civil rights activists had been holding events, marches, and observances in April since the 60s and 70s. In its first few years, SAM focused primarily on awareness and educating the public about the issue. By the mid-2000s, campaigns added prevention, focusing on ways that the public could not only know about the issue, but make strides in stopping sexual assault before it happens. It is a basic human right for every person to be free from violence or the fear of violence. However, we know that violence still exists. On average, almost 500,000 people experience rape or sexual assault each year in the United States. The majority of these survivors are under the age of 30. The majority of these perpetrators are someone the survivor knows, particularly a current or former intimate partner or an acquaintance. Sexual violence occurs in every community and affects people of every age, race, gender, religion, and socioeconomic status. As Mayor McGriff said, however, we also know that systems of oppression, such as racism, sexism, classism, heterosexism, ageism, ableism, and so on, contribute to higher rates of sexual harassment, assault, and abuse. As such, we recognize that it will take ending all forms of oppression to end sexual violence. A Safe Place Family Justice Center was founded in December 2013 as our community's collective response to adults and children impacted by domestic and sexual violence. Our center is comprised of 10 public and nonprofit partners, some who are here tonight, so including Clackamas County Sheriff's Office, the District Attorney's Office, and Victims Assistance Program, as well as Clackamas Women's Services. Together, we provide trauma-informed wraparound services to survivors and their children free of charge. Services offered include safety planning, assistance filing police reports or protective orders, access to emergency shelter, civil legal services, housing, and counseling. A safe place provides a safe location where law enforcement officials, legal service providers, advocates, and community providers can support the needs of survivors under one roof and across a continuum of care.
At Clackamas Women's Services, we provide support and programming for survivors of every age, gender, sexual orientation, religion, race, socioeconomic status, and so on. From hospital responses to counseling to youth education programming to emergency shelter stays, we are honored to support survivors of sexual violence as they navigate their healing process. Every survivor has a different path towards healing and moving forward to a brighter, safer future. It is crucial that we listen and trust survivors to make the best choices for their own lives and the lives of their loved ones. Sexual violence is always about control, a symptom of a world that prioritizes power over partnership. Survivors are never at fault and should be believed and supported. It is crucial that we recognize the responsibility we all have to hold perpetrators accountable and end the normalization of violence in our world. Sexual violence is preventable through the collaborations of community members at multiple levels of society: homes, neighborhoods, schools, faith settings, workplaces, and other settings. While we are honored to do this work every day, we cannot change the world without the efforts of all of the people around us and within our communities. We all play a role in preventing sexual violence and establishing norms of respect, safety, equality, and helping others. This April, let us actively support survivors, speak out against violence, and ultimately make Oregon City a safer place for all.
Add that our elevator staff and Public Works Department is going to light the stem of the elevator. And I'm not, so is that going to happen before the 27th?
It was lit last night.
Last night, okay. I didn't go downtown last night, but on, so the other thing is that on the 27th of April at 3 p.m. at the courthouse, join Clackamas County District Attorney's Office and for their Providing Justice and Safety for Crime Victims in the Community event at Liberty Plaza next to the courthouse. So that's again April 27th at 3 p.m. and we hope that everyone can come out and support this worthwhile effort. Anything else? Did I miss anything? Okay. So thank this Public Works Department for working with Cyrus to get the elevator lit. So it's very important. All right. Mr. Smith, you think you can help with the last one? One more.
How can I say no now?
He can't say no now.
It's a lot of pressure.
I know.
I haven't read it, so she asked us to, right before the meeting, to read proclamations that we haven't looked at.
They're in the packet.
And I always stress that. Well, yes, I know that. All right. This is Arab American Heritage Month, whereas for over a century, Arab Americans have been making valuable contributions to virtually every aspect of American society in medicine, law, business, education, technology, government, military service, and culture. And whereas since migrating to America, men and women of Arab descent have shared their rich culture and traditions with neighbors and friends while also setting fine examples of model citizens and public officials, and whereas they brought with them to America their resilient family values, strong work ethic, dedication to education, and diversity in faith and creed that have added strength to our democracy, and whereas Arab Americans have also enriched our society by sharing in entrepreneurial, spirit.
You're doing fine.
That makes our nation free and prosperous, and whereas they join all Americans in desire to see a peaceful and diverse society where every individual is treated equally and feels safe, and whereas the incredible contributions of heritage of Arab Americans have helped build a better nation, and
Now, therefore, I, Denise C. McGriff, hereby proclaim April 2023 as Arab American Heritage Month, and that the Commission encourages all citizens to learn and celebrate the important contributions Arab Americans have made in Oregon City, Clackamas County, and the state of Oregon across America. I will sign this on the 5th day of April 2023. So thank you. And there is one more thing that's not on the agenda, but I'm going to throw it in because it's appropriate to do it at the beginning of the meeting while everybody is still here. So I'm going to come down in front because they're all looking at me. What is she doing? Where is she going? What? Well, Matt, Officer Paschal, sorry. This is going to be,
Yes.
okay, this is going to be a little bittersweet, but I didn't want this day to pass, and you're here in lieu of Captain Davis, Captain Edmonds, and Chief Band, and he said, don't forget that this is the bitter end for us here. Sorry, this is just a little emotional for me. So I wrote a little something. It's not really exactly what I wanted, but it's close. So I said, on behalf of the citizens of Oregon City, we'd like to thank you for your 25 years of service to the community of Oregon City as an Oregon City police officer. Your tenure gets to the core of community service you and your fellow officers model every day. We wish you the very best in your retirement and trust you will stay in touch with your friends here in the city of Oregon City. And on a personal level, I have enjoyed many conversations with Matt and lunches with Matt and just talking about things in general, because that's kind of how Oregon City is. You can be friends with just about everybody, and I met Matt just as I was leaving the city of Oregon City from my employment, but you know, half the police forces, we're all friends. And that's one of the things that makes this community so amazing, is that we have one of the best, Sheriff's Department, we have one of the best police departments in the entire state, at least I think so, we're biased. And I couldn't ask for better collaboration and cooperation with the people in the Oregon City Police Department, and I just wish you the very best, and I know that our community is going to miss you greatly, but you're gonna be around, right?
Yep.
We're still gonna have lunch? Yep. Okay, all right. So anyway, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. For the community members don't know that we've recently just done another one of our community surveys, and the two, they like the city pretty well in general, but the two departments that rise to the top are the police department and our library. So it's like, you know, couldn't be happier. Anyway, thank you for letting me do this, Matt. You can deal with Chief Band later. I'm just the messenger. Betty, would you like to come up? You have a citizen comment.
Make sure the light's green. Turn
Is
that
the light on?
Yeah, go ahead and touch that. It says
Yeah.
push. There you go.
Light
Thank
is
you.
on. Thank you. Good evening. Betty Mum, Oregon City. I'm here to talk about your last work session that you had regarding the youth sports. I just want you guys to know, I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't have any kids in it. I'm not associated with it, but any cost that you put on to them goes directly to the parents. They don't have any business, well, they have sponsors, but it, bottom line, goes to the parents. And when parents put out anywhere from $300 to $600 per child, per sport, to buy the equipment and all that is needed, that money all adds up. And with our children in having obesity, it is important that we try and get as many children as we can out running and playing and being healthy. So I would, I don't envy you because I don't feel there's any free lunch anymore. Somebody has to pay. But just try and be easy on the price, because I know that our Parks Department works hard, and I know that they're behind in maintenance and all that. But it's a heavy burden that you guys have to carry into the budget. So that's my only concern, is that you guys know that this money goes directly to the parents. And some of the parents say, you know, I already pay my taxes, why do I have to pay more? And, you know, everybody has to pay, and that's the bottom line. And I wanted to make the comments because you guys don't take comments normally during work sessions. So I wanted to make my comments and let you know now. Let me just check, make sure I got everything. When I was on the commission, the swimming pool people, and Rocky, you might remember this, had to come before us because they needed new equipment, new blocks, but the city couldn't afford to pay for it. So the swimming pool people had to raise like over $40,000 to get that done so they could hold competitions and that stuff. So I don't know what, I'm sure there's value. I'm sure that people go out and work on the fields and all that, and maybe you could just counter that in with it all. So I'm out of time because I was going to talk about Ermitanger neighborhoods, but I'll hold on to that one. I'm looking forward to your next work session. And if you do have comments, I'll be there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We are aware of that, and I'm looking forward to getting some additional information from the youth sports about the demographics of their participants, because I think will be important for us to know. So I appreciate your taking the time to come in and talk about that. All right. Next on our agenda is we have.
Something else. I you know, we're losing our youth more and more to not playing sports, and obesity is a really big problem. I do soccer uniforms for Canby, and I had a 4th grader come in, and she had to fit into an adult large. And so it's really important that our kids get out there and play.
I agree. We can't totally make them do it, but, you know, it's like taking piano lessons. Maybe you make them stick with it.
Yes.
So, all right, I'd like to call up, Greg, are you going to come and introduce everybody? Are you going to come up? We have a library board update, and we have the chair of the library board, as well as our esteemed staff. Nice teal there, Denise. And David.
Good evening, Mayor McGriff. Good evening, City Commission. If you can hear me, I'm going to keep my mask on just for now because I'm getting over a health condition where the recommendations are to keep my mask on for 3 or 4 more days. So thank you very much for giving us some time tonight. I am very pleased to introduce the chair of the Oregon City Library Board, David Goldberg. I'm also accompanied by Denise Butcher, our library operations manager, and we are here to give you, well, David is here to give you the annual update from the library board. So without any further ado, I will pass it on to David.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. My name is David Goldberg. I live in the unincorporated Clackamas County. And I was a former member of the Reedsport City Council and have sat in your seats, particularly during budget periods, and understand some of the noise and pressure that is upon you. I'm honored here to serve as the chair of the Oregon City Library Board, and as such, we have been asked to really provide advice to you as the operational board and owner, really, of the library. The Oregon City Library is a unique department of Oregon City in that it serves not only the residents who live within city limits, but an additional 23,000 residents who live in unincorporated Clackamas County. Our service area covers approximately 110 square miles and contains over 61,000 people. This is the largest service area population within the Link Cooperative. When considering only libraries with a single branch to serve their patrons, our service area population is the 3rd largest in the state. 2022 was a very productive year for the Library Board, and here are some highlights. The Library Board worked this year to review and revise the library's community room usage policy. Our goal was to balance the community's need for after-hour meeting space with facility safety, security concerns, and the library's limited staff resources. In the wake of COVID, we worked on much-needed mid-plan updates on both the format and content of the library's strategic plan. We hope to bring these updates to you this year, and that the updated plan, as well as an associated tactical plan, will serve as templates for the next full strategic plan of the library. We worked to update the library's bylaws so that 2 previously informal advisory bodies, our BAM advisory, that's because accessibility matters, and our Teen Advisory Committee, now are designated formal committees of our library board, each with a library board member liaison. And we thank the City Commission for the support there. And you've received just the first copy of what our teens have been doing independent. We're just amazed at how much time and effort these young people have been putting in on behalf of the library. We worked to develop and refine the first ever satisfaction survey, which will be distributed this year to the unincorporated residents of the library service area, who make up 40% of the library's population and contribute approximately 44% of the operating revenue. The questions on this survey will in large part mirror the questions that were asked in the city's survey, so that we have some comparison, and we will be much better able to serve the needs of our members in unincorporated Clackamas County, really by hearing from them as to what they would need for us to be more successful. In a nationwide climate of increasing challenges to free speech and intellectual freedom, we reviewed and discussed the library's existing collection development policy. We hope to finish making revisions this year in order to ensure that our collection continues to be accessible, inclusive, and representative of our entire community. Our board members continue to be active in other groups which support and impact the library, including the Friends of the Oregon City Library, the Oregon City Library Foundation, and the Clackamas County Library Advisory Committee, LDAC. The most consequential activity that the Library Board engaged in during 2022, and which has continued into 2023, is participating in the development of the library's 2024-25 operating budget request. Oregon City Municipal Code 2.44.030D2 specifically charges the Library Board with assisting in the preparation and presentation of the library's annual operating budget. I want to commend the Library Director, Greg Williams, and Library Operations Manager, Denise Butcher, for their efforts in openness and engaging the entire Library Board in the budget development process and in helping the Library Board fulfill this important duty. As part of the budget development, the board requested a better understanding of the history of our current budgetary challenges. Greg Williams completed a comprehensive examination of the previous 5 biennia. We'd like to share this with you in a work session that we hope can be scheduled during this budget process so that we can iron out some of the issues which I think would be too extensive to do here in this forum. Here are the following issues that really came to light. One, staffing. The Oregon City Library relies much too heavily on so-called on-call staff. We presently rank in the bottom 25% statewide in staffing per capita. More than 40% of our staff are part-time and do not receive benefits. Our board has a serious ethical concern about this overuse of unbenefited staff. Finally, due to the budgetary pressures over the years, our two senior managers spend an inordinate amount of time juggling the schedules of 25 part-time workers with absolutely no support, administrative support. And they're doing this in order to be sure that none of them cross the threshold where they're eligible for benefits. So this is this is soul-destroying work. So that's number one. We've already had to decrease some services to children because of these staffing challenges. Second, Oregon City general funding. We looked at from 2015-17 to the present, and if we look at the net Oregon City general fund contribution, in 2015-2017, it was $389,700, representing 8.7% of the library's operating revenue. In 2022-23, the net Oregon City General Fund was $95,816, representing 1.7% of the library's operating budget. As the most popular Oregon City department, as we heard from Mayor McGriff, from the latest survey, we have witnessed a steep decline in financial support, and this doesn't even take into account inflation. These are just dollars per dollars. Third, library debt service. In 2014, the taxpayers of Oregon City passed the authorization to sell a general obligation bond for the construction of the library's much-needed expansion. In the voters' pamphlet for Measure 3, 435, the city committed to not raising taxes for the debt service and stated that the city would make debt payments from library revenues and from other existing city resources. However, debt payments have been made almost totally from the library revenues during this entire period. Fourth, the library fund balance. The library's operating fund balance will approach $4 million by the end of this biennium. The growth of the fund is great concern to our board. We discovered that the fund grew mostly because of the underestimation of Clackamas County property taxes. These were library district operating revenues that could have been used to improve our staffing challenge. In the board's discussion of the 2024-25 biennium, we propose a process that over the coming 10 years, when the existing facility bonds will be fully retired, we would create a fiscal glide path that brings the library fund balance down to a reasonable, fiscally sound balance while providing much-needed, sustainable, predictability in the library's budget going forward. These are not one-time funds. These were operating revenue funds that were not expended because they were misbudgeted or they were under-budgeted. Finally, leadership. The Oregon City Library Board believes without a clear path to remedying the part-time staffing issues, we run a real risk of burning out our exceptional leadership. We cannot afford to lose their keen and dedicated leadership of Greg Williams and Denise Butcher. I'm happy to entertain any questions and discuss any of these concerns with you tonight. As I said, we've done an extensive 10-year analysis, which we'd like to present to you and ask that we have a work session really early in the budgetary process so that it can inform the budget. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Are we supportive of that? Having a further discussion?
Well, I thought the April 27th, which is the first budget committee meeting, there is public comment at that meeting.
Well, he's not asking for that. He's asking for a specific time where we could have further discussion about this.
Outside of the budget committee process.
Yes. Questions?
No, I appreciate the information, and I'm open to hearing a little bit more about it.
I would be as well. I noted in your documentation that 60% of the library service area population is Oregon City. And to me, you know, and again, I'm not a mathematician. I don't claim to be the wizard at finance like our finance director, Mr. Zook, but I can do the simple math and basically saying that there ought to be equitable fair share between the non-residents and the residents. And it sounds to me, based on this information you've submitted, that we are not doing that. So you don't have to answer the question. I'm just making a statement from what I can read in this. So I definitely have some concerns about that, and I'm sure that the perception of the public is that, as you stated in your paragraph, that the debt payments wasn't going to solely be from library revenues. And I do recall there were many discussions about that amongst the community members when this was on the ballot. So, Mr. Morrow?
Thank you. I appreciate the comment. So I believe a lot of the information that is going to be given is something that I've talked extensively about with Mr. Williams at the beginning of the year. And so I would just worry about if we were to do this, then to get requests from every single department as opposed to just going through the regular process of having public comment and, of course, entertaining comments that are sent in via email and writing. So I just worry about that because I don't want it to seem like we're giving one department a head over the other, and then when saying that, having every other department come and request a work session, which is something that we can't handle.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, I mean, through the public comment tonight, but also anything else that would be of interest to us in writing, I think would be really helpful.
Agreed.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, may I say one thing?
Absolutely.
This has been a year that I have neglected to do this. So when we came last year, and Mayor Lyle Smith at the time asked if there was anything I wanted to add, at the time I said no. So I've been holding on to this comment for a year.
So please.
And I'm going to say it again. We have the best, not that there's a competition between advisory bodies, you know, in the city, but we love our library board. So I want to commend the how engaged and how curious and how supportive our library board is. We feel really fortunate to have the group that we do, helping us figure out how to move forward with providing great library services to our community. So thank you to our library board.
I would agree. Thank you. Anyway, thank you, staff that's leaving. So we'll have to all get some of those teal-colored ribbons for the rest of the commission.
So if, I
Yes,
guess
sir.
I want to make sure I understood. It happened kind of, so we're not going to have a separate work session. We're going to incorporate it into the budget hearing process so that we can have a holistic discussion about how general fund revenues that are very limited are distributed across multiple departments. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have to deal with the agenda. Do we have adoption of the agenda? Is there anything on the consent agenda that we want to pull off? Or may we have a motion to approve? Thank you for the minutes. And are we getting caught up on the other minutes for the other, do you know about the other minutes for the other departments?
Yes, and we were going to talk about that a little bit later at the,
Okay.
But yes, I do have an update on the audit of
Good.
all
Thank
of the
you.
boards and committees.
Thank you.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the consent agenda as submitted. Call the roll.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell. Excuse me. Commissioner Rocky
Excused.
Smith.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion
And
passes.
I want to also add that the minutes under 7J and K, I really appreciated that we got those back so soon because we're going to be talking about it a little later on the agenda. And again, I want to thank all the staff and that came to that. It was a good session, very good session. So, all right, we don't have any public hearings tonight. And Mr. Conkle, you have 9A.
Thank you. So tonight, this is a continued item that was brought forward at the last City Commission meeting. It's an OLCC liquor license application for a limited on-premise for Big Chill LLC located at 875 Malala Avenue. Staff recommends the City Commission approve the OLCC application for Big Chill LLC. The application is attached at the last City Commission meeting. The City Commission asked that we reach out to the owner and invite them to attend tonight's meeting to answer outstanding questions that the City Commission may have concerning the proposal and operations at the facility associated with this license. My understanding is that the owner is here.
Come on up. Anyway, thank you very much for coming, and we just had some questions. There was some nebulous items on your application that we did not understand, and we can only respond to what people submit. So could you just tell us what it is that you're going to do? Because it said you were going to be operating a winery, and I doubt that that's what you were, that you probably checked that box erroneously, right?
So I think there was like a...
So say your name for the record, please, and your city of residence.
Okay. My name is Miriam Monterosis, and I'm from Beaver.
And my name is Hardeep, and I'm from Woodbourne.
Yeah, so I think there was a misunderstanding on the application. So what we're applying for was a liquor license to sell sealed containers, like, just like closed beer and like wine. So we already like sell like drinks like Gatorade and like, regular beverages. So we were just adding in coolers to sell those, and I think that was like the gap in the communication. And we received an email from someone who was reviewing our license, and they told us that they updated it to better reflect what we were actually going to sell. So I think that was the issue there, was like a miscommunication.
Well, like I said, we can only go by what you checked on the application.
Yeah.
And that's what was checked on there. And I said, well, I know what a winery is, and I don't think that's what they're planning on doing. Did I understand that there were some concerns or comments from the neighborhood association? Did you have a chance to talk to those folks?
No, we have yet to hear from any of them. Yeah, we haven't heard anything from them, but I mean, we're more than like open to discuss with them and like answer any questions.
Okay, yeah, the reason I asked is I was told by one of the officers that they had been communicating with you, so that is the only reason why I asked.
From the city.
Temporary license.
Okay, yeah, so I think for our liquor license, we did get like a temporary approval, and like the person that reached out to us, they did tell us that they corrected it, so it'll be closed containers and off-premise sales. So, yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Move it a little closer.
Sorry.
No, you don't have to lean over, just move the whole thing closer to you. There you go.
Yeah, just repeat what
So,
you said.
just to like reiterate what I said, was that the last email that we got was
From whom? The neighborhood association or OLCC?
OLCC.
Okay.
So they basically gave us the temporary license to sell like closed containers off premise, but we haven't heard anything from the city, like the neighborhood association, like in regards to that, but we did get approved for the license already. So I'm not sure if like what the next step is, if we have to discuss with the neighborhood association.
No, you don't have to, but it's always a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we could understand their concerns.
There wasn't a facility there before, it was a pellet stove business, so.
Yeah. And then we were also invited by someone from the city to discuss another topic that we had. It was in regards to a food truck application that we were submitting. They did tell us that due to the MUC zoning district that we weren't allowed to have a food truck on our parking lot. And I did review like the MUC district code, and I did see like it just noted that no businesses with like a drive-through is allowed. So I just wanted to clarify that, because like the food truck that we were planning to do was to be like parked on our parking lot, because we have a pretty big lot, and like customers can come and, you know, park there and get their food. So
I totally missed the whole first part of what you said because it wasn't really clear. So you're saying
Food truck.
you want to put a food truck on the site? Is that what you said?
yeah, so we had applied for, like, there's two separate things. We applied for the liquor license, and, which is off-premise sales.
Right,
and
you have a
then-
temporary one, with not a full one.
Yeah, so, and then we had inquired about having a food truck to sell food, like, on the premise, and we were told that we could come and make a comment on that, because we were initially told that we couldn't have food truck due to the zoning district that we reside in for the business. So I just wanted to see if, like, how we could bring that up, like,
Well, the
what's...
community development director and staff are here right now.
Oh, okay, so this is our first time attending a meeting like this, so we're not too sure how the process works.
Ms. Hurd-Ravage, do you have, did you understand what her question is?
I'm not sure.
I can repeat it.
This is probably some complicated zoning questions that are going on related to proposed uses.
I understand. I'm just trying to say, if she needs to get help, she's here.
She's here.
I wasn't saying for her to come up and say
Okay.
anything. I was just making a point that our director is here, and she can give her the card, and they can have a further discussion about that.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay,
So-
perfect.
Mike has a question.
I'm still confused. This application says on premises, but did you just say off premises?
Yeah, so I think when my partner filled out the application, he did not fill it out correctly, and I think that was what we were here to clear up, right?
Yeah, so like,
So you need to speak into the mic if you're going to talk. Sorry.
Yeah.
Again, say your name for the record again, so.
yeah, my name is Pradeep.
I'll make sure the green light is on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so, yeah, and like that time, they asked me some questions too, like how I'm gonna sell like the liquor. And then I just told them I just wanna sell like beer and wine only, and that's it. And I don't know like how it was on the application, they say like on premise, like people are gonna come and drink there, but yeah, they are not. We just gonna just sell them, like people can come by, like just regular like gas stations and convenience stores. That was the thing.
It says on your application that it's a limited on-premise, not off-premise.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah, but it's off premise. Yeah, but yeah, I can say.
So what does that mean?
Well, on premises, it's consumed
On the
on the premises. Off premises is you take it
can
away
buy it
in a
and
bag.
take it away, go somewhere
bottle
else.
or
Okay.
can or whatever.
And I already clarify with her name is Rahodis Patty, and yeah, and she already approved the license, the temporary license.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Her name is, how is it like, Rahodis Patty?
Patty Rhodes with
Patty Rhodes.
OLCC.
Yeah, and then,
Has already approved the license?
They have a temporary license. They don't have a final one yet.
yeah,
Okay, and is the temporary one on premises or off premises?
off premises. Off premises.
Off.
Yeah, and we have yet to put it up in our, like, business, but, yeah, we did receive another email saying that they corrected it, our application, because they're like, yeah, we received your application. It doesn't seem like that's what you're applying for. I'm going to correct it. So I don't.
Just don't have the update.
We just don't have it.
Okay, is that what it is?
Well, yeah, that's why
I
we're
assume that's
asking
what
all
it
these
is.
questions.
Yeah.
Everything you're saying is contradictory to what we received.
Yeah, and I did
even
see.
though our police department says that these are sort of routine applications, they are not in our mind routine. And so we are actually reading them and seeing what it is people are saying, because let me just be honest with you, my question was, why, maybe it's none of my business, but my question was, why do you need to have off-premise alcohol when there is a grocery store across the street, there's a restaurant over there, and it seems like that's there's enough liquor sales. So I don't know what your business model is, and it's probably none of my business, but again, you're asking us to be operating in the city of Oregon City, and even if we said no, the OLCC is probably still going to approve it, but I'm just telling you that we take this seriously and we read what you put down. So we didn't get an updated application. We don't know that. And I appreciate your coming in. So we're just trying to get what it is that's really going on. And probably the Elyfield neighborhood residents are watching on YouTube, seeing what this says. So we don't have what you have. That's part of the problem.
Yeah, and we're like very unfamiliar with this process. Like we're barely like brand new business owners, and we never like attended a meeting like this. So just like, but we did want to come like clarify, because, you know, obviously like it's important for the community to know, and like obviously we're going to do things the right way.
Well, thank you for being here, first of all, because most people in general have never been to a meeting like this, and so we appreciate your willingness to actually talk to us. And so when you hear frustration on this side, know that it's not directed at you, it's more directed at the OLCC and them being complicated to work with. And I appreciate and applaud the entrepreneurial spirit here. Just a question of the mayor. Would you characterize the concerns of the neighborhood association? How would you characterize those concerns?
The concerns that I heard from the Elyville Neighborhood Association was that they were concerned that there was another package license facility in their neighborhood, and they did not feel that the neighborhood was underserved, is basically what I got. And I told them that it's pretty perfunctory, but we were going to clarify what was on the application, because it wasn't clear to us, because like I said, I thought that limited on-premise meant if you're going to have a rock star or whatever it is, you'd have to drink it there, you couldn't take it away with you. But basically it's going to be, you know, but selling Gatorade and selling canned wine or canned whatever is a different thing to me. They're not really the same thing. So that, I'm just telling you what I heard from the community. And I told them this was coming back. We were going to get more information because we weren't clear and about what was actually happening. So we, again, it's not you. We're just trying to understand what it is we're supposed to be doing. And we didn't really want to recommend approval of anything if we weren't really clear what was actually going on. So what's your pleasure, gentlemen? Any questions for you? Okay.
No. I would move to approve it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And I would say subject to getting a corrected application back to the city, and I guess we'll let the police department take care of that. So let's do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
No.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Well, if I vote no, it's a tie, and it's still going to get approved anyway, so I'm going to vote aye.
Motion passes.
Anyway, thank you very much for coming in, and I will, hopefully if somebody from the Ely neighborhood is watching, please go down and introduce yourself to these new owners, and just make yourself aware about what they're doing, and that you feel comfortable with it, Ely neighborhood residents. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to you, Mr. Conkle.
Oh, thank you. So the next item is the City Commission 2023-2025 goals discussion. So I put this on the agenda requesting, just making sure that we're still comfortable with the minutes that have been created reflecting the discussion and the direction from the retreat. So things are obviously moving pretty quick between the goals and the budget process. We also were intending to bring this at the work session next Tuesday, but we've cleared all items from that work session other than the parks fee and MOU discussion. So I felt like I wanted to at least have a brief discussion, because this is an important part of the budget process and the narratives that we're putting together that you're going to be reviewing at the end of this month. So in the minutes, it really does start to lay out the themes that are essentially the existing goals that the commission is currently working under and staff are working under. During the retreat process, we did agree to remove one goal, goal 7. And then under those goals, there were...
Could you clarify that? We agreed to incorporate some of the items into other goals. So we didn't, it's not completely gone, it's just there's no goal 8 now.
There's no goal 7 now?
Yes, there's only 7.
Correct. And then under the themes, we talked about some of the initiatives that would be included, some of those ideas. So I think the idea is to build on those as part of the work plans that we're putting together. And so as we go through this process, you may recall under the existing goals, we had the goals, we had very, very specific projects identified with costs and timelines, trying to, is there a way to work through this without such specificity tied to projects? Because some of these initiatives, we don't exactly know what the project is going to be yet. For example, in planning and community development, we know we have legislation that's coming down from the state. We know that there are probably certain things that we need to do around housing. We've allocated funds in the budget, but we haven't allocated a project specifically because right now we don't exactly know what that project would be. So just want to have a discussion about what the expectations are, or at least begin that. And I talked with Commissioner Smith a little bit earlier of wanting to bring this back in more of a work session type setting so that we could work through that, which I think is great. Just want to be clear that the timing related to the budget process is getting a little tight. And so, this may be an iterative process that works concurrently as we go through the budget and realize what funding we have available to do certain projects as well is going to be part of this discussion.
So this is another topic that is hard to balance, and here's my balance that I was struggling with. I want to be able as a commissioner to support goals that are broad enough to have flexibility, but I also don't want to be put in the position again where we approve the budget and that means we approved the plan or the specific project. Because we wrote out a couple of years of projects that were not supported by this commission by saying we passed the budget and so therefore we approved it. I have huge concerns about that, and so how do you balance, having an open-ended goal, which I think we want to have, so we're not micromanaging every project, but also that we don't go back to this, well, you approved the budget and that was pretty broad and these goals are pretty broad, and so therefore we don't have to talk to the commission again. I don't want to see that. So I think that's the balance I have to struggle with.
Commissioner Morrow? Okay. Yeah. Commissioner Mitchell?
Well, I agree with what Commissioner Smith said. I think prior to this set of goals, previous goals were probably too vague and didn't get enough into specifics. And I think this particular one probably went a little too far the other way. So, the answer is somewhere in between. So we still have the flexibility, but we also know where the priorities are, where the goals are, so that we know some funding that we need to put in behind it. So I guess what I'm looking for is something kind of in between that and this. And and how that can work with the budget timing is
now.
yeah, it's really tough, which almost, I guess, almost leads us back to having to keep it a little more vague now in the budget and then come back with an update. And I spoke to Mr. Conkle about this, and if we have X number of monies set aside for DEI initiative, as an example, let's say, it's a simple, it doesn't require us reopening the budget, adopting a new budget to when we get ready to do more specific projects with a dollar amount assigned. And I think that's where we're headed, just as a matter of time. We're not going to be able to get it to the specificity that the current goals are.
I think, as I think through this, I think the iterative process, and this was part of the conversation that I have, has been, when we go through the budget process, I think the one thing that there's going to be a lot of hard discussions about where do we want to invest the money that we have, because it is going to be a tight budget. To try to hit every goal is going to be very, very difficult. So I think there's going to have to be some discussion about what do we want to accomplish, and where are we going to focus our resources that are available to us. The second part is that this commission has made it clear for more frequent updates on the goals. And so I do wonder if that is part of that process of, there are certain knowns that I believe, based on the retreat and where we ended up as a team, was, for example, DEI. I think it was pretty clear that there was work that that the commission wants the city to continue to do over the next 2 years. So that's included. Now, the specifics of it, we're going to work through, and that I think will be part of what coming back to the commission to talk about. Public safety in terms of pedestrian safety, so we've allocated funds, not specifically for specific projects yet, but we have set aside funds so that we can do public pedestrian bike improvement projects. But there's going to need to be refinement in where and when those occur. So we are carving out funds or trying to incorporate those into work plans. But there is going to be, some are going to be a little bit more specific because they're a little bit more known right now, and there are going to be others that we may have to come back and revisit depending on funding, staff, and timing as we kind of work through the budget process and realize how much funds do we truly have available to us, and how do we want to prioritize what we have available to us. But I do think, getting to your concern, is that, like I said, one of the directions is that we are going to come back with more frequency to discuss goals, where we're at and what we're encountering, trying to implement them, or, part of that could be, here's what we think would be a goal, a project to implement this.
What are your thoughts about, so I would like to see us put out a one-pager like we had before with the goals that you included on this one. It's still, we put at the because I took those and I had several of them I carried around with me all the time. When people asked me about it, I could go here. We had the details elsewhere, but at least they had some idea. So I think that would be worthwhile, us putting that out. The other thing is that I liked the approach that we did last time, which you outlined the goal. We talked about what the strategy is and the possible approach. We're not ready to put the numbers in yet, but I think that same format makes it really easy to review, and it's kind of a benchmark. We can kind of look at it and say, okay, we talked about this particular goal, and here's sort of the things we wanted under it. And we were very clear in it. If we weren't going to be able to do it, we talked about that. We pushed it out. But I know we're not quite ready for the funding source yet, or the estimated timeline. But I think if we work towards that approach, I think it made it very readable, made it very understandable, and it's something we could hand to the public could see. You also had it on the website too. So I think that would be an approach. I think it will be helpful for us to have, at starting the budget sessions, to have those goals handy. I know that some of the budget committee members, are not super familiar with what they are, but we don't have to go over them in detail at all, but that they're aware that there are certain broad topic headings that we are looking at. And I think that bodes equally well for the Urban Renewal Commission budget sessions. There's some things that apply directly to them. So that would be a way that I would suggest. And I do, again, appreciate the fact that we got some notes. And I also like what you submitted in the packet, where we talked about what the initiatives would be. They were labeled as discussion, and then sort of the big, broad topic areas. I think for refreshing our memories, I took a lot of notes, but this sort of coalesced it for me, and I could kind of go back and go, okay, yeah, that's kind of what, I could kind of go back and forth and look at it, and I don't believe you missed anything. The consultant missed anything, neither did staff, and I appreciate, thank you to Angelique for having, working on those. So I think we're going in the right direction, and as you said, I think, further budget discussions, something I want to ask that not going to be answered today is that we talked about the, amount per thousand. We've never gone beyond that. We won't go beyond that, but I just want to make sure that there's some flexibility in that about what we decide is that final number.
The amount, the millage rate?
There's going to need to be some discussion about that. I see your eyebrows raising from here. See, these new glasses work really, really well. I can see far away. Any further discussion? Okay.
Okay. So I appreciate that. I think, I think this, like I said, I think if the commission is comfortable, this is going to be an iterative process that I think is going to be driven by both the retreat, but also the budget discussion that we have. And I think that once we come out of that, we're going to have a much clearer idea of what we're capable of affording
Right.
Over the next 2 years.
All right. All right, on to, should I dare say, my third favorite topic? I have so many favorites, I don't want to choose. So while staff comes up, I'm standing up because my leg has just decided it was going to just try to go to sleep, so. Yeah. Well, you don't have to sit next to each other if you don't want to. And again, thank you again for your leadership on our tree planting.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for coming out. We had good turnout.
Yes, and it was lots of fun, and there was lots of good food.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I do have a question for our Parks Director. Why is it so windy at Chapin Park? I put some chili on my plate.
Trees, that's
I think maybe that's it, not enough trees. I put some chili on my plate to eat it, and with 3 bites, it was stone cold from that wind blowing through there. But I walked over to the parking lot where the trees buffer it.
Yeah.
It was totally calm. So I think next year we're having our potluck in the parking lot, not in the kiosk. I mean, this is the shelter.
Hot there too.
Huh?
Always very hot in Chapin Park in the summer.
All right, go right ahead.
Oh, thank you very much, Mayor McGriff, and good evening, commissioners. Staff has been working at the direction of the City Commission to bring back further information on the street tree minor code amendments. And I'll just go through a brief presentation on what we've learned and gotten input on.
Got to get a sunny picture of the bridge.
Yeah, it would have been a nice greenery on that one.
Yeah, some gray, overcast.
So we have talked to the Natural Resources Committee several times about pollinator gardens, and we're going to give you a brief overview of what they said about that. We also did some research on what other cities charge for a fee in lieu of planting of street trees and how that compares to the City of Oregon City's fee in lieu. And then we have the revisions, the proposed code revisions themselves. And the one that was initially discussed is the exception or the requirement not to replant in narrow planting strips for, which are 3 feet wide or less. And so there would be an exception from planting, fee in lieu, or recording a covenant for planting on private property. And bearing in mind that we've already made revisions to the recommended street tree list, and that has resulted in us looking hard at some of the species on that list and making sure that the right tree is planted in the right place. The other code revisions that we've done between the last meeting and this one is to look at the consistency of the term arborist in the code, clarify who the decision maker is in the code, and look at the covenant requirement for planting in yards and considering removing that requirement, and making planting in the planter strip the top priority with the fee in lieu as a last resort. So with respect to pollinator gardens, the NRC agreed that they're a great option for narrower planting strips. They wanted the city to provide more of a guidance and information on how best to grow and maintain pollinator gardens. There's a lot of great information out there from the Xerces Society and other groups, including the Soil and Water District and the Extension Service. We would update the city's website and provide various social media links to that to talk about plant type, size, growth habit, diversity, how to maintain them, and that sort of thing. The NRC did recommend that we could provide a limited list of species that would not grow over a certain height so that they wouldn't block lines of sight at intersections. But there's already code on the books to enforce nuisances. For example, if there's a sidewalk mobility hazard or site obstruction or nuisance weed growing in the right of way, those things are already regulated and would be handled through our standard code enforcement process. So the general overview here from the NRC was not to make this a regulatory thing, but to make it an educational thing and provide as much information about it and to encourage it as much as possible. With respect to the fee in lieu of planting, currently we charge a fee of $391, and that is pegged to, that's adopted in our development costs review fees every year. It goes up approximately 3% based on the construction price index. When it was initially adopted, it was based on a cost of purchasing, transporting, and planting a typical 1.5-inch caliper tree. And that's a generally accepted industry standard for a new tree. Looking at cities in the region, we're pretty much right in the middle of what is charged for fee in lieu. And we also checked with Friends of Trees on what they currently estimate the cost of that is, and it's around $400 is what Friends of Trees uses. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you. Clicking the wrong button. With respect to the code exceptions, as recommended by the Natural Resources Committee and the Public Works Department, and as directed by the City Commission, the code includes an exception for replacement, replanting, and fee in lieu, and we clarified that exception language around nuisance species so that trees that are listed as invasive, non-native, nuisance, prohibited, or noxious may be removed without replacement. So that's that one. The term arborist had various different things, including, registered, qualified, but it didn't say certified everywhere. So the prevailing definition that we have in our definitions code talks about a certified arborist, which is the certification provided by the International Society of Arboriculture, requiring a minimum of 3 years of experience and having passed a certification exam that tests a variety of tree care knowledge. So throughout the code, we have replaced any other references with that prevailing certified arborist term, and that helps clear up any ambiguities and standardizes the references there.
There's going to be the same throughout the code?
This principally affects chapters 1208, 025, 1208, 035, and the Heritage Tree Code. In the other chapters of the code, like the zoning code, through this process, we're not making that amendment, but we can do it next time we look at a zoning code update and that kind of thing. Okay. Thanks. The decision maker was not clear in the code amendments, but we've changed that to say city manager or designee. And that way it'll stand the test of time if there are changes to the code and that sort of thing, or if there's a city forester in the future, they would still be working under the city manager and that sort of thing. So that's that one. And making the fee in lieu as a last resort. So we've rewritten this section to specify that the applicant must demonstrate that there's insufficient planting space or there's no place to plant outside of the planter strip on city property as determined by either the Public Works Department or the Parks Department in order to qualify for a fee in lieu. That would place the burden back on, or place the emphasis back on replanting in the planter strip, which is the priority.
So can you just say that one more time?
So
I'm looking on page, I'm looking at 120835,
Okay.
down towards the bottom, can demonstrate. Is that what you're referring
Yes.
to? Okay.
A fee in lieu would be allowed if the applicant can demonstrate that not planting in the planters, there's insufficient space. And that would be looking at our standard clearances from public utilities, not things that were not public utilities, that sort of thing. So we have clearances from street lights, fire hydrants, sewer, water, and stormwater facilities and that kind of thing. So we would take those into account as, and if there's insufficient space based on those, then we could potentially look at that. And then the applicant would work through the staff to determine whether there's any additional planting area in a city park or a storm pond or something like that, and we would coordinate with Public Works in that situation. And if that is not an option, then we would allow a fee in lieu payment.
What about on their property?
Well, we wanted to talk about that next.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, that's all right. But before I get to that, the one housekeeping issue is that the dead trees were not listed in the code, along with diseased or hazardous street trees. Then they may be removed and replaced with one tree at the 1.5-inch caliper requirement. So that just adds that word into the code.
Wait, one, real quick. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I thought we took that word out intentionally at one point. I'm trying to remember.
The dead tree.
And it could be years ago. I guess I semi-remember a conversation about, therefore, if someone intentionally kills a tree
Oh.
to make it dead.
Gee, that's never happened.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just wondering, I guess I'm just throwing, was there a reason we took that out? And I thought there was, but
No,
maybe I'm not
yeah.
right.
No, I don't recall us taking that out.
Specifically dead, but that may have been something else.
Yeah, I suppose in a situation where we could easily tell that a tree was healthy when it was
Right, and the
before,
same
and
could be
suddenly
said
it
about
wasn't.
diseased or hazardous as well.
Right. I know, we had that conversation. I remember it very almost detailed.
I know of a situation where somebody deliberately cut the roots and then came to the city and said,
Oh, the tree's dead, I
my
need to
tree
take
is
it out."
dying.
Right.
And it was really obvious that the roots had been cut. I mean, there's no way a tree itself would have made that, that demarcation.
Right. It could, it's certainly a scenario that could come up and has happened from time to time, and it doesn't just happen in street trees, it
I
happens
think,
on
you
private.
probably need to put the mic up a little bit. I can see through there.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Thanks.
lift it up a little bit.
Right. So back to your question on the covenant. If we take into account that we are prioritizing replanting in the planter strip, and we have a list of recommended species that's updated to be appropriate for the wider strips, and we prioritize that, we really don't think that there's a need to plant on private property. And associated with that, in the past, what we've done is require a covenant that treats that private tree, either replanted or existing, as a public tree so that we can enforce the tree replacement if need be. In practice, it's extremely difficult to administer, and as you've probably heard through discussions, the covenant itself is fairly expensive to record with the city, with the county recorder.
$93 for one page, yes, I understand.
There you go. And so, to my knowledge, we have never invoked a covenant and no one's ever filed a code enforcement complaint about that. So it's not a very workable piece of code, and it doesn't prioritize replanting in the right-of-way, which is what we're trying to promote, because we want to shade the streets and we want to shade the sidewalks and provide that sense of separation for pedestrians. So our proposal is to take that requirement away and not have it as an option. But that's something we wanted to pass by you as
So
well.
what if somebody wanted to do that?
Well, if they wanted to record it and they were willing to.
I mean, if they wanted to plant the tree in their yard.
Then I suppose
We're not going to tell them no,
We're not going to tell them no, that's true.
but the priority is for the right-of-way.
Right, yeah.
But would planting it not in the, not in the planter strip, but they did plant a tree on their property, does that eliminate need to pay a fee in lieu?
They wouldn't have to pay a fee in lieu because they planted a tree in their yard.
Okay. That's the question for us, is which would we rather see, the occasion where they could plant a tree on their property and maybe it goes away when the next property owner comes along and they cut it down, as opposed to having a fee in lieu?
That's the scenario, you're right. What you're explaining would be they're.
Yeah, because I think the covenant thing's not workable.
Right. If we could get some kind of a deal with the clerk's office that they could record that for a really low cost, that would be fantastic. He's shaking his head. How do you know? We've not asked her.
Well,
She's reasonable.
we would also have the permit itself,
Right.
proof that we had agreed to let them plant in the yard, so we could potentially always go back to the permit.
Right. And that, to me, that's enough. If we've got a permit and they plant it in their yard, if there's,
And we'd have, that's documented in part of our system, yeah.
So obviously I have the strongest opinion about the fee in lieu. I think it's too low, and I want to totally discourage people from doing that, because I think we need to promote it being in the public right-of-way or in their yard. It's not that we aren't doing a good job on replanting trees in our parks and stuff, because we're working on that, but it's been too much of an easy out for people in the past.
I would suggest we start with the slide.
Yeah, well, so this is kind of a recap of what we're seeking your direction on.
I think we already had a consensus, and we agreed that, that we have a replanting exemption for parking strips that are 3 feet wide or less.
Agree.
Okay. Thank you.
There's a possibility you could find a tree that might work, but
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, the NRC, the new street tree planting list, they did make recommendations for a 3-foot wide or smaller planter. So if somebody chose to, there are options available, but, okay. So first bullet point.
I think as long as there's an option and somebody could, I mean, because, you know.
Yeah, and they could also do pollinator gardens as well.
Right, and then we're going to have some standards for that. We just did a pollinator garden down at the end of the Oregon Trail Center,
So, and then the second item is the text, the code amendments about certified arborist, decision maker, fee in lieu as last resort, and the other clarifications.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think my concern is that we had different definitions for what we were talking about. It all needs to be the same thing. And I would hope that we would discourage people from using a certified arborist and also have that same person be the one that cuts down the tree, because to me, that is a total conflict of interest. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I understand that. I guess certified arborists under the ISA certification do have a code of ethics, so that that might help in that regard.
Right.
So just a clarification about the pollinator garden conversation. Were you saying, so which part of, in regards to pollinator gardens, were you saying were already regulated under city code? The sight line?
Lines of sight is traffic sight obstructions, which is chapter 10.32, and then we have sidewalk clearance requirements in chapter 1208, which is our public street code.
Okay, and then the NRC would make some more, or come up with some more guidance for.
Yeah, we would basically create content, and the NRC would vet that and look at it and suggest what additional information needs to be there on the city website, and then we can potentially do brochures or mail-outs and social media, trail news, you name it. Because one of the things the NRC also recommended was that the plants be selected for year-round blooming, so that we provide to the extent that they can, a food source for invertebrates throughout the year. Yeah.
I know that I just talked a friend out of, they said, well, I want to plant a butterfly bush. And I said, well, they're really not for butterflies, and they are a noxious weed, according to the code of the state of Oregon. So please don't plant one of those. Get milkweed instead if you want to attract the butterflies.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of good options out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're talking about removing the covenant option for planting new or designating existing trees in private yards near right-of-way.
Yes, that's the.
Wait a minute. Are we removing the requirement for the covenant, or are we removing being able to plant them in private yards near the right-of-way?
Removing the covenant is what my understanding was. I don't know if that's exactly what that says.
Okay.
Right. Yes.
They can still
do it, but we're removing the covenant requirement.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And next time I see the new county clerk, I'm going to ask her.
So just to clarify, I guess the question is then, if we have an applicant who removes a street tree, and then they say, okay, but we want to plant a tree on our private property, on the private, on the back of the sidewalk, can we do that instead of fee in lieu or all these other things? And so I guess that's what I want to make sure that we're clear on, because the covenant was just a way to, as Commissioner Mitchell said, like ensure that that tree remains there instead of mitigating for removing the street tree. So if we remove the requirement for the covenant, we somebody could still plant a tree, but we don't have as much we don't have a way as much to enforce like the next property owner from, say they were to remove it, it's just
How would the permit work with that then? We give them a permit to remove the tree and they say, I want to plant it in my yard, wouldn't the permit make note, that's what Pete, I think you were implying, that the permit would be a record of that tree being in the yard. Now, obviously, somebody would have to go back and say, oh, that's a permit and you took it out and there was a permit for that. I don't know how that would work, but at least we would have some record of it. Bill's itching to say something.
Itching may be the wrong word, but I do think that what I'm hearing is with the covenant was a mechanism that allowed us to say, you've now cut down your tree on your private property and you need to replace that. We have some sort of right to enforce that. If we get rid of the covenant, they plant something on the on their private property. Without something more in the code, it's really tough to then say, that second cutting is wrong and you've got to replant that. That was the intent of the covenant, was to make sure we could do that, because the next property owner
Could come and cut it down.
basically would have no notice of that. That's what the covenant served to do, was put it in the public, in the property records. Oh, I've got this weird covenant for a tree. But without that, the new property owner just has no idea. And if they want to do new landscaping, and then they would have no reason to inquire with the city about, can I move this tree or cut this tree down and put in something else? And so the covenant was the mechanism that the city had to be able to keep some control over that tree on private property. To the extent we get rid of the covenant, I think what you're doing is saying, we don't think it's likely someone's going to cut it down, but we're sort of washing our hands a little bit and not going to keep enforcing it.
Those kind of covenants show up in a title search?
They should.
It would.
Yeah, yes.
And I really appreciate your saying that a property owner is going to be looking at that. And so I was thinking back to the reasonable man theory. And I know how many people that I know here in Oregon City who have never, ever read their deeds. They have no idea, and they would not, I can't say that maybe 1% of people probably have looked at their deed.
Understood, but that at least
But it would, at least it would be there. And that's my concern, is that, just as you said, that I understand that it is, when I did it about a year ago, it was $93. I recorded one page. I understand that. But now it's running with the land of my property, and whether they read it or not, it's going to be there from now until perpetuity. So that's my concern, is that if they have enough concern that they want to plant a tree in their yard, and I know I can hear Tom Guile in my head saying, well, we can't afford that. I don't know that if we take it out, then we will have to require them to pay a fee in lieu.
But you were talking about the bureaucratic difficulties with managing the covenant. Can you just go in a little more detail about what that's like for your department?
Yeah, so if someone chooses that option, it normally takes a while for them to arrive at that option after having looked at trees on their property and that sort of thing. But we give them the template for the covenant and say, study this, read it, understand what it says. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. They sign it as an owner. It has to be publicly notarized. And then they take that, we attach a site plan to it and a legal description. So there's 2 exhibits, 2 separate pages on the back of a 3-page form already. And then you take those 5 pages and record them at the county recorder and bring us back a copy of the recorded covenant. And we scan that and put it with the permit. So that's how it's done.
Computerized system, is there a notation? Do we have any of those?
Yes. Yeah, we make a notation in the permit that there was
we have some currently.
Yes, we do.
But are they in GIS?
well, they're not like point data. You won't see them as on a map, but, you can reference the permit.
Right, so I guess part of the bureaucratic part of it is that we don't really have a great way to track where the covenants are. And then, like when someone applies for a street tree permit, they have this planting deadline, and then the planners will go out around a certain time and check which ones, which street tree permits they process and say, okay, this person planted, that person planted, okay, they met their deadline. But we don't have that same mechanism for checking all the covenants, and, we're not able to run around the city and say, that covenant tree is still there, or that one came down. We don't have that capacity. Yeah, we don't have that capacity to keep tracking them.
And if somebody takes down a tree on their property, we don't have a way of knowing without a lot of research whether it had a covenant attached to it or not.
Correct.
So we really don't have a way of enforcing it.
Okay, well, wait a minute. A lot of research. This amazing computer system that we're supposed to have is supposed to be tracking all the permits. So anything that was supposed to go with property X was supposed to be listed in there. So when a planner pulls it up, or building department person, whoever, they can go and say, oh, they have this street tree permit, and somewhere it should say there's a covenant with it. I mean, that's my assumption.
But I think part of the problem is, though, that we don't require permits to remove trees on private property, so that we would never know if a tree was taken down that was a covenant tree, unless it was through a code enforcement, that somebody knew that was a covenant tree and brought it to our attention. Because we do, like I said, we do not require permits for residential tree removal on private property. So there would be no way to cross-reference it.
So somebody would have to know that there was a covenant on that and file a code enforcement complaint.
Right.
Yes.
Right. It's not going to work.
So that's exactly my point, and that's the reason why I asked that, is because I understand. I do not want us to be veering into a conversation where we're talking about regulating trees on private properties. I want to stick to this, and as much as I would love for this to work out logically in my head, it just seems like too much of a headache for zero enforcement when that's what we would get without it. The only difference is just the lack of staff time given to it.
My concern is that's why I asked the question, do we have any that are currently existing now? And apparently we do. I don't know how many there are. I don't know if there are 10 or there's 4.
We've been doing this
for a while,
for at least 10 years. And I would say we get about probably 8 to 10 a year, I would say.
That have covenants attached to them?
Yeah, that's probably too high. It was probably more like 5, or average. Yeah. Yep. And we do have aerial photography year to year that we can see whether things have changed on a property. It's,
When I think about the number of trees required to be planted, and if we're talking 5 to 10, I'm not sure how much, and if we lose 1 or 2, how much effort do we want to put into this, or do we just not allow it and move on?
That sounds like what I hear from these guys is that they're not in favor of that. It sounds to me like if we don't have any other options, then that's a fee in lieu that they pay. They're going to pay to do a covenant anyway, so.
Exactly.
So it's the last resort is the fee in lieu.
Well, I think my opinion's different. I would rather forget about the covenant. I would rather take a chance that tree stays than a fee in lieu, because I'm with you. I hate fee in lieu. I think it's a horrible option. I would rather take the chance that that tree does stay there.
On the property?
On the property. So allow as an option, if it, first priority is it goes in the right of way. If it can't go in the right of way, then they can do fee in lieu, or they can do it on a private property without a covenant. And we just hope that they decide to keep it, because I think that's better than the fee in lieu.
Yeah, well, the other option is that there's another place in the city that it can be planted. And so that would still be not the last resort. It would be one of several options. The last resort is if none of that works, can't plant it in the yard, can't plant it someplace else, because I know in Oregon City you can always find a place to plant a tree. So it's the fee in lieu is still going to be the last resort. So I would support removing the covenant.
So I was confused because you had said that there was a difference of opinion, but I agree. That was exactly what I was trying to communicate.
Okay, so maybe I understood what you said. Yeah, you got it.
Because, I mean, regardless
I misunderstood the mayor. I thought you said you didn't want people to be able to plant it on their own property without the...
No, regardless, they would be able to.
Right, okay, so I think we agree.
It's still an option. The last resort is none of that pans out, not planting somewhere, not in their yard, not in the parking strip, not in a park. Then there's the fee in lieu. But like I said, there's always a place a tree can be planted in Oregon City, in a park, someplace.
Okay, so we will strike the need for a covenant, but there is still the option to plant on private property.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay, all right.
And the final question is whether the fee in lieu itself is sufficient.
That question, I think, is for you. Well, what is honestly, whether the fee is adequate.
No, I don't think it is. No, I think it's too low.
Can you go back to the comparison, please?
Yeah, I saw that in the staff report. I don't want to keep up with the Joneses on this.
Yeah, so the highest we found was Beaverton, and I think the reason that's at 800 is because they're taking into account a period of maintenance that assumes that there will be pruning and watering costs associated with it for 2 years after it's planted. So definitely on the more expensive side.
You're saying the Friends of Trees cost is $400.
Yeah.
And they're getting them at probably some reduced cost. I don't want to go Beaverton or Tigard or Milwaukee, but it's somewhere between Gresham and Portland.
I don't like the sound of that.
Oh, boy. Well, we didn't want to be Portland.
I'm talking about the chart.
Yes.
Can we use Sandy?
Okay.
I would be fine with the 500.
Okay, I'm fine with Sandy. Portland is not a bad word. Remember, they're our suburb. They are our suburb.
Yeah.
We were here first. They're the suburb. Take that, Ted Wheeler.
Okay, thank you.
Is there consensus on that, or is this one we're just going to bring back and vote on individually?
Well, I'm torn on it. In this particular case, where we're talking about a private citizen dealing with a tree, I'm a little reluctant to go much over $400. I do think we need to reevaluate it when it comes to new development and substantially raise the fee in lieu charge for a new development.
Well, I don't think a developer has a darn good excuse to not be planting any trees, so.
Right, but we have a fee in lieu in our code that they can use as an option, and I think that one we really need to look at, because I mean that's where big chunks of our tree canopy go away.
Yeah, because
as opposed to one person dealing with their tree.
I would love to have some sort of an incentive that they get some sort of bonus if they keep if they just develop the land according to the way the land wants to develop and leave trees, they would, you know, we've got to make some sort of an incentive for that instead of this constant clear cutting that doesn't do any good.
What was your suggestion, Adam?
He said Sandy.
500?
Yep. And do we have a caveat that says if you're doing a new development and you cut down all your trees, you get to pay? We did put something in our UGB statement about that. Well, Mr. Kavaisman.
Yes.
How prejudicial would it be if we have a fee in lieu for homeowners and others, and then another fee for others?
I guess I wouldn't term it in homeowners and others. You may have a renter in a single-family dwelling, and you know, I do think there are some distinctions that can be made between residential versus commercial, industrial, or initial placement as opposed to replacement. Those types of distinctions are things.
Okay, I like that, replacement versus new.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of complexity, how complex we want to make the code. But
That's something that you would want to have looked at? Because I agree with you. I want to stop this clear cutting business. It's bad for the environment.
The 1741, which is development code, but the fee itself is.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, I'm talking, I was
looking at Tony, sorry.
Well, I think what's interesting, I mean, I think that would probably take some additional works. I mean, that was the whole intent of this originally, was to deal with the significant cutting of sites rather than trying to retain tree canopy during specifically the subdivision process. And I think, well, I'm not sure it's been successful, I guess, in terms of preservation. So I think there's probably a larger discussion about how do we do this. So I'm not sure if let's say we doubled it, I'm not sure that's going to have the outcome you'd like.
You're not sure it's what?
I'm not sure it would have the outcome you would like on a 50-lot subdivision. And I just say that knowing that when you think about the economies of what development costs now and what home prices are or what lot prices are, you know, $800 for a tree on a $130,000 lot. So if that's what we're trying, I'm not sure that just raising the fee is going to get what we want. I don't have a problem with it. There's probably a way to get there. I'm just not sure it's the answer. We thought it was the answer when we put it in place, and I'm not sure it's been effective in discouraging.
Yeah, I understand exactly where Commissioner Mitchell is coming from. We're kind of, our intent, I think, is to incentivize planting a tree, because you can, if you go with the Friends of Trees program, obviously we are partially subsidizing it with some of this money. So a reasonable person could assume that they could get a tree. But I mean, if you go out on your own and go to a place that sells trees, I mean, you can get a fairly decent tree. I think I bought one, but this has been many years ago, it was around 150 to 200. I still had to dig my own hole, so.
I guess I was more referring to, differentiating it for when a new development comes in, so.
That's what Commissioner Mitchell was.
Right, so I think, I understand where you're going, and I don't have a problem. I think this could be a part of it. I'm not so sure how effective it'll be. And it's probably a larger discussion. Are there other ways? I think it's a larger discussion,
but I don't want it to go away. So I think you've got a consensus with Sandy, so. Did we cover everything?
Yes, I believe so. Thank you.
I've got two just little minor items. Can you go back to the slides that you had that had the red lines?
On which slide, sorry?
Further back, I think. Or no, yeah, there were some where you actually had a screenshot of the code and the red lines.
Oh, yeah.
Next one. Go again. go back one, sorry. I guess I have a little bit of a problem where it says the fund is to obtain trees, plant trees, and/or tree education. Personally, I'd just rather have it say obtaining and planting trees. If a tree is going to get taken out, I would rather see a new tree get obtained and planted, not tree education.
Not educating the trees. Right?
Or educating people about the trees.
If you went up and hugged the trees, you could kind of learn stuff by osmosis or something like
I
that.
just want to see that fund used to obtain and plant trees.
Okay.
That's the point I was trying to make. And then,
But Friends of Trees is an educational process, and some of that money does go to help educate people about trees.
okay.
Not the individual homeowner or whatever, but.
Okay, all right. Then don't worry about it. It's fine. Can you go forward another one? There was just a real technical thing, and
That's a dedicated fund, right? Just for
I've got to
trees.
find it again.
We get asked.
The point I'm trying to make, there was one, it's 12.08.035D, and it said the exception for 3 feet or less, the tree does not have to be replaced. It should also say, or a fee in lieu paid. Right there. Point number 1, if a planter tree is 3 feet or less in width, replacement is not required, and a fee in lieu is not required.
So,
Just to be clear.
yeah, that section is in the,
Right here.
not on the slide, but in the code, yep. Okay. Yeah, okay, we can make that change, yep.
Yeah, just to be clear, that if you have 3 feet or less, you don't have to do either one. You don't have to replace, you don't have to pay a fee. Just want to make it clear.
Right.
Yeah, that's good, yes.
Okay. Do we want to take a vote on that?
We're going to be bringing this back
You're
as
gonna
an
be bringing it
ordinance
back?
at the next meeting
Correct. Yeah, we'll bring it back as an
Okay.
ordinance for you to
with cleaned
vote
up.
on. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Right, last but not least, we have second reading of ordinance number.
I got 2 more things.
Oh, what? Oh, yeah, on purchase of new library circulation desk. Okay. Second reading of ordinance number 23-1003, revising the city code to allow additional members to be appointed to Youth Advisory Council, Youth Advisory Committee. May I have a motion?
I move to approve the second reading of ordinance number 23-1003.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Roll call.
Ordinance number 23-1003, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City revising the city code to allow additional members to be appointed to the Youth Advisory Committee.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
and Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. And last but not least, the purchase of a new library circulation desk. I'm so excited.
Oh, well, good. Good evening again. Mayor and Commissioners, you get a library sandwich this evening, both ends of the meeting. First of all, I would like to apologize to the Commission and to our City Recorder and to Tony, our City Manager, for the late addition of this item to the agenda. That is not normally what how we like to do it, but I will take responsibility for an imperfect understanding of the routing workflow of the paperwork and the request. So thank you very much to Jacob and Tony for their assistance. What you have before you tonight is back in October of last year, the City Commission approved some expenditures of ARPA funds that the city had received. One of the requests that was put in was for the library. It was for a replacement library circulation desk. The new desk will, if you've been in the library recently, you've seen that we have kind of a temporary mishmash of, they're basically folding tables from the community room. And we discovered during the course of COVID that positioning of the desk worked a lot better for patron safety, for operational efficiency, and for basically creating much better patron experiences and interactions when the patrons came in. So we had come to the commission to ask for permission to spend up to $75,000 on that new desk. That was kind of what we thought it was going to end up costing. This is the final contract amount, so we got the quotes. We worked with the vendor. It's a vendor that we've used for some other library furnishings. We like their stuff. Excuse me. They do a good job, and this desk will be consistent with some other furnishings that we've purchased recently. So since this exceeds $50,000, it is something that comes back to the commission, and with that, I will entertain any questions.
Are there any questions? Is there a motion?
Can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
I'm not going to make an issue out of it because it is ARPA funding. If it was coming from our city budget, I would really have to challenge $72,000 for a custom desk and $9,000 for freight. You know, you can, anyway. But I'm not going to make an issue out of it because it was already discussed and it's ARPA funds.
If I may, we have experienced the same sticker shock with shipping on many things that we have ordered in the past couple of years. We've talked to vendors about it, and the consistent response is fuel costs, inflation, labor costs, shipping has just gone way, way up. So.
And I would say, I believe I saw a visual at one time. There's no visual with this report, and I would have liked to see that, but I won't.
Understood, and I'll remember that for next time. Again, I do apologize for the late addition of this to the agenda.
It's an issue of timing.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it. Been moved and seconded that we approve the authorization for a new circulation desk from Pacific WRO in the amount of $72,483.19. Call the roll.
Commissioner Adamaro?
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith?
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And I will say this for the record, that I went to the library the other day and I didn't realize that you guys do regular purges of memberships. So luckily I had that library card that you gave me.
Oh.
So I renewed my library card.
Excellent.
Because they couldn't find me. He says, "Are you sure you're spelling your name right?" And I said, "Yes, I'm positive I am spelling my name right."
If there has been no activity on a card for 3 years plus 30 days and there is no balance on the account, the county every year as part of data retention will purge those inactive records. And so when you look at our card counts, we love it when we get 3,000 or 4,000 new card holders a year, and then in October, you lose.
Well, a lot of my research involves the history section, and you can't check any of that out. So I'm there a lot using that part. I don't need my library card for that.
That's something we're looking at in a future project. So
yeah. All right. So now I've been reinstated, everybody. I have a library card again. So I said, "Oh, I thought they never expired." City manager, do you have your library card?
Yeah, I'm going to go put a dime on it for like a fine. That way they won't kick it out.
So you won't be purged?
Yeah. Mr. Wiley, would you like to give the update on where we're at with the minutes, please?
Yeah, so thank you for having me talk about that tonight. We've been working really hard on the audit, going through all those meetings, all those minutes, checking to make sure that they were approved or not. We found plenty of drafted minutes that hadn't been approved, a lot that hadn't been approved, or undrafted ones as well, for committees all across the city, or excuse me, for committees all across the city. So I don't know if you want me to go in the exact details. I do have the numbers in front of me for each one, but we also will be allocating some funds in the next biennium for additional transcription services. Right now, we've been relying really on one contractor for our transcription, and you can imagine that's a lot. She doesn't just work for us, she works for other cities too. So it's a little slow, so we're trying to catch up, have somebody that can get them back to us a little bit quicker and maybe help with the backlog.
Could you give us a summary of your audit, just because it's not that I don't love seeing Mr. LaSalle here, but I think he's going to be persistent in wanting to know what the results of the audit were, and if you could just put together a summary, that would be really helpful.
Sure. So do you want to be down to the specific committees individually?
I think it's important if we're going to go through this, just go by planning commission, the date.
Right, the main ones that he had concerns about.
Yeah, the key ones, planning commission, there's 15 minutes that need to be approved, 78 that need to be drafted, and that's all from 2008 to present. HRB, we have 30 minutes that need to be approved, 38 that need to be drafted. NRC, there's no minutes that need to be approved and 30 that need to be drafted.
And that's, HRB is going back to 2008, and our NRC is going back to 2011.
Yeah. And we've been limiting ourselves to that because that's the most available for us to get to. So that's kind of where we went. Do you want me to have any more questions or anything? So yes, we are working on it and we have a plan.
That's great. That's good. I know that, again, Mr. LaSalle was quite upset about this, and again, we are working towards taking care of that, and I think, like I said, a summary given to him will be worthwhile and help that. Anything else?
Nothing
Commissioners?
else for tonight.
When you're feeling better, we'd like to get your impression about your NLC conference. That would be great. I know your throat is not up to par. I was asked by our communications manager that time is running out for the city-sponsored public event program. The grant deadline is April the 14th, and if you have any questions about that, it can be found at orcity.org, community/city/sponsored public event program, and you can talk to, that's coming out of our economic development department, I believe. So we can talk to Mr. Lehman or Mr. Graham or Ms. Griffin about that. So I was supposed to say that. Again, I want to thank the staff. I'll do it one more time for the tree planting event. I heard lots of good response from the community about that, even though we got a little bit wet. And then I also want to ask the commission, I would like to bring to our next meeting an acknowledgement statement. We've been asked over the last year since we adopted the goals from last time that we have an acknowledgement statement, and I looked at the one for the community college, and it kind of covers everybody, and I don't want to reinvent the wheel or take a lot of staff time, so I've asked the city manager to bring that forward so we can look at that and see if that's something we want to say. We've been asked. I know that our tribal partners have asked about it as well, so I'm just trying to respond to our constituent concerns. Just, one more time, since I told you guys at our dinner break, the mayor of Westland and myself are going to be on taping an interview Friday. That'll be on the Sunday KATU. And guess what topic we're talking about? I-205 tolling. So the fire's still burning. We're still keeping pace. Adam was instrumental in helping get a letter together that's coming from Clackamas County and the cities. Again, talking to our partners at ODOT, and I was recently interviewed again on Tuesday, and I was asked, what problems do we have with ODOT? And I was very circumspect about it, and I said, look, we don't have a problem with the staff at ODOT. We understand that they are doing what they've been directed to do by the legislature, and then I had the big comma with the, but this is what we have concerns with. So I guess we're just going to have to keep talking about it. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Well, I'll make this short. I'm super tired tonight.
Yes, congratulations on a successful conference.
Yeah, I had a great event in Seaside for my business, but so I'm catching up on sleep and everything from spring break. I don't want to pass up this meeting without thanking Kathy Wiseman for her 19 years of service to the city. She's someone I've worked with in many ways over many years, and I really appreciate her and her work that she's done, really in a lot of ways beyond the Pioneer Center, but Pioneer Center specifically. She will be missed, and I appreciate her and all the work that she's done, and thank her for that.
I would concur. All right. think we have officially, for a city commission meeting, we have set a world's record. We are adjourned.
I don't think it's a record.